So we heard some voices, not much of noises, when asked about your lunch. But we hope that this topic is so interesting and important that it will keep you engaged. It's about the role of HR in organizational culture. And we've got a power-packed panel, as you can see right here. And I quote Patrick Lencioni. He says, a bad culture can undermine even the best strategy. And a good culture can make a mediocre strategy succeed. So it kind of says that, culture is important. And very often, things like resources can be measured, results can be measured. But culture can't easily be measured. However, there are elements of culture which we can kind of look and see. What the panel will attempt to do is to dissect this whole aspect and see what it is and what you can do as HR practitioners, and some of you are CHROs, many of you are wannabe CHROs, and I think that's where we suppose our deliberations will be helpful. And we'd like to keep it simple and sweet, and we might give some time, notwithstanding the timer, for you to ask some questions. Okay? So let's kind of, start with Pooja Minocha. Pooja Mirchandani, sorry. I got Pooja Minocha and Mirchandani. So, Pooja, you are at Crisil, and it is an interesting and large organization, one of the BFSIs globally. What is a positive culture? I mean, can you simplify it for us?
So culture is like a central nervous system that we can think about, to the response that I'm just going to give. So it's about how you feel when you enter the room. So a positive culture will be a place where, at least in my experience, I have seen employees feel extremely valued for who they are as human beings, for the work they do. They also feel extremely empowered to be the best version of themselves. While it may sound cliche, but if you do not feel empowered, you probably will never be able to put your best foot forward as far as your work is concerned, and and grow professionally and personally as well. So these are simple things that will truly define a good culture. And while theoretically it's quite easy to say a good culture or a bad culture, but there has to be mechanics to understand what culture an organization wants to drive and how to measure and sustain the culture. So there are a lot of these practices that one has adopted over time. With experience, you sort of work on them. And good culture essentially will truly be, am I feeling valued for the work I do, and am I feeling empowered to bring my best self to work every day?
So essentially you're saying it answers two questions. Am I feeling valued for the work I do, and am I feeling good to come to work every day?
Yes, empowered essentially.
Empowered.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks. In the same vein, Vivek, can you give a different perspective or more of the same? I don't know.
Yeah, first of all, special thanks to all of you for being here. I hope we make it worthwhile for each one of you. So Pooja has very comprehensively covered the essence of positive culture. I'll just touch upon on the basis of my experience. I believe what would be positive in my context from my own experience and what I have seen in my organization, that it is about the spirit of collaboration, the spirit of care and excellence. If all these three tenets work together, then obviously there is positivity in the culture. And how it happens as an outcome of shared belief, as an outcome of making it sure that we touch each other's lives and enable each other to succeed. And also the demonstrated outcome of a positive culture is a sustainable high performance and stickiness of employees. So that, in a simple term from my experience also, is what positive culture is. But it's a very deeper subject, so we can discuss in more
it
detail.
sure is, Vivek, but you make some very interesting points. You touched on three words: collaboration, care, and excellence. I mean, if you take out excellence, there are many organizations where there's collaboration and care. And excellence is a dimension which brings about performance and talking of sustainability. I think that's something which we need to kind of focus on in addition to what Pooja has also mentioned. Right. Let's move further. We've got many panelists here and they've got a lot of wisdom to share. And let's ask Manmeet. Manmeet, who do you think is responsible for creating the culture? And in fact, I'll ask Shantanu and you as well, but you go first, Manmeet. And then what incidents stand out in your mind, either positive or negative, in creating the culture? And does it connect to business outcomes? Or is it something, you can put culture in a box somewhere and...
Yeah, so I think one of the things that we forget about this is that regardless of whether I say something specific about the culture, regardless of whether there is some document somewhere that tries to define culture, an organization will have a culture. And a large part of what that culture is something that is probably set up by the leadership in the organization. The role of individuals in setting up of the culture of the organization is very critical and very important. As I think about culture, I think it's not really so much of a question of are certain specific things critical for a positive culture. Far more important is that the culture be authentic to the organization that you are. And in that sense, the transparency with which an organization can talk about what its culture is and be true to it is really what represents its ability to be successful, to your earlier point around does it connect with outcomes. If I talk about being a very extroverted, outgoing culture where we as an organization engage a lot and connect with people a whole lot and all of that, but really I have a CEO who's very introverted, I have a leadership team that is very focused on results and outcomes, but not really so focused on relationships, that's not the culture I will have. And what that'll do is that I'll end up attracting the wrong sort of people, making it much harder for everybody to be aligned towards a shared purpose and a shared direction. In that sense, when we talk about having a culture which is set in the organization, it needs to come from the top. It needs to be done in a way that is authentic. And as long as the definition of what that is clearly defined and it is authentic, the organization will be able to move forward in the same direction. I'll give a PhonePe example. We as an organization are very aware of the fact that we are a very data-oriented and a very argumentative organization. But we're also very clear about that. We let people know. It happens in our interview process, it happens in our meetings, it happens in how we conduct our town halls. So there is a lot of conversation and there are a lot of words. It'll be hard for people who are introverts to be able to be successful in this organization unless they sort of develop a certain level of mode of operation. But if this is clear about who we are, it makes everybody in the company be much clearer in terms of how they move forward and how they define their own path to success in the organization. I think another element of this is the sense that we as PhonePe believe that we have a duty of care towards our employees, and in that sense, we've always tried very hard to make sure that we are able to retain people as long as they're performing. We avoid situations where we may need to reduce headcount as far as possible. We've had multiple examples of that happening during COVID and after, where we've stuck to the idea of saying that the workforce that we have is a workforce that we will keep. This might have an impact in terms of how quickly we grow, how many people we plan to hire. But the fact that we have stayed true to this multiple times and our workforce has seen us play this out multiple times means that this is understood as an organization culture. Duty of care is something that is very important to PhonePe. So to your question, how do we, who's responsible? The leadership more than anything else, but the leadership also needs to be transparent and honest about what it is that they define the culture as. And how do you make sure that the culture is understood in practice? It is by those specific moments in the organization where you demonstrate what you're willing to do, and that's what really establishes with the culture.
Go to Shantanu.
Yeah, I just realized it's really hard going after you, Manmeet, with that kind of an exhaustive response. I'll probably just plus one a couple of points she made. So absolutely, I mean, and again, I'm preaching to the choir here. Obviously, all of you know this better than me, but Culture is already there. It's your choice on how you modify it to the best of your strategic and people requirements. And culture will get articulated from the leadership, but it'll require the transformation by middle management, and it'll have to be lived and breathed by everybody in the organization. Otherwise, it's not really going to permeate at the level that you want to do. From an Amazon perspective, given just the sheer size that we are and the number of companies we are in and the number of geographies we are in, I think we found our secret sauce in what we call our leadership principles. So you could just Google them. There are 16 leadership principles that we swear by. Those are the behavior traits that we expect every Amazonian to demonstrate. And the way that integrates into our culture is right from the time we hire somebody, to every performance management, to every business discussion, to every crucible moment that might come up in any business context or people context, is governed through that leadership principle. And just to make it more real, I guess we're all living and breathing some form and shape of what will Gen AI do to us, right? I mean, we're figuring that out. We are no different from that. And one of the leadership principles which is helping us here right now is something which is ingrained into our culture, is called ownership. Now, what is ownership? Put simply, act like the company is running on your own money, right? So if you have that kind of a perspective, then Gen AI, is it scaring you? Is it integrating with you? Do you need to lean in and learn more about it? It's that mindset which is forcing everyone to kind of step in and do it. And again, it's not easy for the scale that we operate, but that's been one way for us to drive, positive reinforcements of the culture we want to envelop. And I promise you, you wake up any Amazonian in the middle of the night, they can start parroting all 16 leadership principles. So it's that ingrained in the system. Yeah.
Quite interesting. I think I wouldn't like to summarize, but I think authenticity and predictability is what you spoke about, Manmeet, and Shantanu reiterates it with, use the word parroting the leadership principles. Though it might seem like rhetoric or pejorative, it's important that some of these stated principles, these principles are stated and understood till the last line. And that's when things start working in culture as such. So Pooja, Minocha is with Bata. So let's throw you in the hot water right now. What challenges have you faced, especially in times of change, like a merger, like downsizing, change of a CEO, anything transformational happening? Could you just spell out something for us? What challenges and how did you kind of navigate?
Thanks, and good evening, everyone. Transformation, change, I think, has become the norm, right? And there's always a very business reason why the transformation is needed. However, transformation starts with a very small seed as to there is a need to change, and to really understand that need comes from any corner of the organization. So some of the practices that we at Bata have been driving, and I've kind of put an acronym to it, calling it the CEO method or the model. It's about communication, emotions, and really the operating model. Typically, when a transformation happens, and I'm not qualifying what kind of transformation, because transformation can be as little as within a very small part of the organization, or it could be the entirety of the organization going through a new channel or a new merger, etc. What is the CEO model, right? How do we really bring more entrepreneurship within the organization when transformation happens? How do we make it not the thing, but something that we need to move ahead, leap ahead, to get into a more competitive advantage? So when we talk about the first alphabet C, is really the communication. Are we really communicating the need and what really is the end goal that we want to drive to in terms of this transformation? So does every part of the organization understands that? Not only employers, but also stakeholders sitting outside the organization, be it your vendors, be it your suppliers, be it your the entire industry, the talent industry that wants to look at what your organization is doing. So being very honest, authentic, regular, keeping the same tone, not making it too complex. Grade 1 student should be able to understand what you're trying to do. It should be as simple as that. The second is really about emotions. Whenever we're trying to build change or bring change or drive change, the most neglected part is really how does the employee or the person associated with the organization feel about the change. There's always nervousness, right? How do we manage that set of emotions? How do we manage the nervousness? Is it something that's really perceived or it is actual? Needs to be articulated well and needs to be thought through before we move to the last alphabet O, which is the operating model. What is the transformation for? Functionally, where things will change? How will the entire organization run behind it? Is what needs to come the last in that order, right? We spoke about orders earlier in the panel discussion, in one of the previous panel discussion. So I think emotions for me personally is a very important part, that how employees or stakeholders are going to perceive the change, the transformation, back it up with very robust, simple, consistent communication right from pre, during and post, during hypercare period. And last, be very, very clear which part of the organization is this transformation happening, the operating model, give it more attention. So that's really the way I would perceive it.
Thank you. Would you like to add something to the CEO model, Manmeet?
In terms of how we think about challenges. So I think
Challenges
the
and how did you...
CEO model, I think, is very comprehensive in terms of how Pooja's talked about it. So I won't attempt to go there.
But challenges, what challenges have you faced?
But I think the story around the challenges of sort of maintaining a culture, for me, I think at PhonePe, what has been really powerful, one example that always stands out for me is this was actually fairly early in my joining PhonePe, within first couple of months. And as an organization, we were relatively new. Our bank partner at that point in time was Yes Bank. And then one day, RBI just decided that Yes Bank was not going to be operational. So suddenly, we as an organization who were so proud of ourselves and we thought we were doing so many things and we were going to be going so far ahead, suddenly nothing on the PhonePe app was working anymore. What has stuck with me about that moment is that what the culture of the organization was, without us having yet written it down, without us having gotten to a size where this was the sort of thing that we all talked about. What happened in that moment was the culture of the organization. And what happened? This happened in the middle of the night, and within an hour of that announcement in the media sort of coming out, everybody in the company, which was about some 400, 500 people at that time, began to pour into the office in the middle of the night. The CEO and the CTO were there, the founders. They, within seconds, sort of distributed the work amongst themselves. One person focused on figuring out how we can do alternates to what we have in the place. The other person tried to figure out what was it externally that we needed to get done, whether it was meeting with RBI and whoever else. And everybody else, without being told what to do, figured out a specific spot and a specific place in which they could contribute and figure out how to get everything back up. We were in office for some 24 hours, and I think it was about 24 hours before we were right up again. But in that moment, the culture of that organization was established. We've sort of often joked about the fact that we've not really had to do an engagement activity after that for a couple of years, because that was the engagement activity. So I think this thing about how does an organization react in moments of crisis, the fact that everybody in the company felt that this did not mean that the world was falling apart, that this was an opportunity for everybody to stand up and rise to who they were, that nobody in the organization was shouting and screaming and trying to figure out who to blame. Everybody was super focused on figuring out how to get to a solution and get onwards. And I think that sort of, again, flowed from the top down, because whether it was your founders, whether it was your leadership team, everybody was working, trying to get to a solution. Nobody was sitting there trying to tell other people what to do, or figure out some other alternate thing, or at home saying, oh, there's nothing for me to do. Because even if you were somebody who had nothing concrete to contribute, you were there and you were figuring out what you could in fact do. So I think more than what as an organization you do systematically to get the culture established, I think it's been moments like this that it's sort of established who you are as an organization and where you take the organization from there onwards.
So, Manmeet, I was just recollecting what you said a little earlier to the previous question. You said shared purpose, shared direction, and predictability. And you said it all in this narrative. Thank you so much. Right? Friends, we are kind of ticking along. There's a lot to cover. There's little time, but let's see how we go about it. I just want to touch around this piece around employee engagement. And let me ask Vivek, what practical steps can HR take to boost employee engagement and make employees feel more connected to their work?
Thanks a lot, Emmanuel. I think what you have mentioned is spot on. What we do from engagement perspective has to be very contextual, and it has to be connected to reality. It has to be authentic. So I just share from my experience. Obviously, first of all, it is important that there is a meaning and there is a purpose in terms of what we do. And in Zensar's context, so we are a mid-tier company, and in an industry where we are competing with companies of size of $15-20 billion, and our industry and the companies who have grown in the industry have pivoted on certain transformation. And we all know that everybody is now pivoting on AI. So it was important for us to really energize our organization in the direction of growth. And what we did, and we have a very strong speak up and listening culture, that we reached out to our people, all our stakeholders, whether employees, customers, our shareholders, and also community we serve, to really put together what is the why of Zensar. And what has come to fore is that it is together we shape experiences for better futures. So that is spirit of togetherness, that is spirit of opportunity and making it happen became the DNA of the organization, and that's the why of the organization we have. And that, in fact, that meaning energizes everybody a lot. And it is very contextual because we all know that there is an opportunity to make a difference and make it happen. And here we have that as a why. So that's one. Second, we have a very strong culture of happiness. We went beyond engagement to happiness. And now happiness is a very esoteric word, right? It is very intrinsic also. It can mean different things to different people. But again, going back to the principle of listening to our people and understanding what matters to them and what is contextual, we in fact got to understand from them, we did a very deep insighting, got to understand from them that what are the tenets that makes them happy. And what came to fore again was tenets like I love my work, I am growing, I feel valued, I cherish my culture, I have a purposeful and balanced life. So these tenets actually came from employees that this is what matters in terms of their engagement and happiness. What we did was that we built a very robust action plan to ensure that we work on the feedback received and we really create a culture where everybody thrives. And obviously there has been a journey where we have increased our score from 75 to what is 84 right now, but it's not about the score, but what we have done in the journey. And last but not least, experience happens at the point of engagement with manager. And there, in fact, we have worked towards ensuring that we build the capability of our leaders to ensure that they create that ecosystem, they drive that purpose, they drive the values which we have to ensure that there is a high level of engagement and connect. And obviously, there is a so what of everything which we do. So when I speak to my CEO, we do have that conversation. So what's the so what of so much we do and investment we make? And the so what also has to be there, and it's very clear. One, in fact, our retention is best in the industry. Second, we have recently been recognized as top 15 great places to work. And obviously, our advocacy is pretty high. Beyond that, customer index is in the top quartile. And obviously, our shareholder value and the business is successful. So it's a combination of making it real and authentic and making it happen.
So systematic work, and where people thrive and there's an opportunity to give their best is what you're saying.
That's right.
And it's linked to business outcomes. Let's listen to Pooja, Minocha. What are your thoughts around this aspect of practical steps which can be done?
So I think there are 2-3 things that we could do very quickly. I'll summarize is reinforce and recognize what we really want to stand for. Because at the time of engagement, we kind of get distracted with many things which are not the core of the business, whether it's purpose, whether it's culture, whether it's the change that we want to drive. So one, please ensure that engagement retains the core of purpose. Why, as an organization, we exist and what are we thriving for. The second is check on the pulse, then really the posture, right? Instead of those annual surveys or check-ins and structured one, which becomes very monotonous after a point of time. Really, are you getting the pulse? Are your antennas on? And there are many ways one can do it. So to each one's own, what really is the culture? The last is celebrating small wins, right? Really, really celebrating. So I think thank you is one simple word, but very powerful when you really recognize somebody for the little things they do for you, right? Even an email response saying thank you, it goes a long way. So take it from there. These are the three things that engagement can become more regular, part of daily behaviors and habits, than really making it engagement as a process or a program in itself. So more fluidity in that space.
Fair point. Thanks, and very succinctly put. Again, purpose, pulse, celebration. You have to remember these three words. I've got the next question. How do you engage with an outsourced and contractual workforce who are part of the value chain? What are the opportunities despite the challenges? Have you heard the question? Very well said. I think both of you touched on two aspects. What Pooja touched on through her values. The outcome is access, advancement, and enablement. And you, I would like to sum up as you can disagree without being disagreeable. I think that's an interesting thing. I don't know how we do on time because we wanted to touch a little bit on board-related things, but I'm afraid we'll have to wait till the next awards to do that. Let me just take a few seconds, maybe have a liberty as a moderator to speak and close the whole conversation. But I think, dear friends, what the panelists have kind of weaved out for you is actually a small one-credit course on organizational culture, right from, how do you kind of set it right, what the values, whether it's being authentic, whether you feel like coming to work and you're empowered enough, things like stated leadership principles, and then you have the CEO model to look at change, actually, which is communication, emotion, and operating model as such. And from PhonePe, we understood about shared purpose gives shared direction, and there's predictability, and that's a fantastic story which we listened to. And then we heard that we need to create opportunities, and culture thrives. The most critical link is the manager. As long as all of us are in, the leadership is able to connect to the manager, they would be able to do that. We also thanks Sanyog for telling us about contractual workforce, which was a simple but good input. Communication is important, and connecting with the vision is what he said. Okay, and then finally we close off that unless there's a safe space, culture can't thrive, and that's an important aspect for us. And someone quoted saying, when HR listens with empathy and acts with purpose, it transforms a workplace into a community. And it is said that a toxic culture can destroy a company faster than any competitor can. I think we need to be aware of that. And finally, I quote Simon Sinek, who says that culture is the heartbeat of an organization, and HR is the pulse that keeps it alive. So friends, please keep it alive. Thank you.